We lost again at the last second on an amazing play that you would think would be similar to the Patriots game where it would just demoralize you, a game that you thought about often. But my perspective had changed, not only in that season, but as a person and throughout my career. And I remember running down our sideline because I knew where my family was sitting, and they were crying and they were disappointed. And I just remember looking at them and saying, it's okay. It's no big deal. Life isn't about winning a football game. It's about the moments, and it's about being able to relish and enjoy the things that God gives you.
Well, that was a Football Life featuring Hall of Fame quarterback Kurt Warner. He reflected on the Cardinals' Super Bowl 43 loss to the Steelers and the lessons he learned from, which, by the way, was on the NFL Network yesterday. But meanwhile, the Bengals went on an incredible run in 2021, but ultimately fell short to the Rams in Super Bowl 56. And Joe Burrow was recently on the Full Send podcast. Shout out to my boy Bob Menery, where he addressed why he still celebrated following the loss.
Here's the thing. It's not so much as, resuming life, but I was watching, you guys watched the Football Lives on NFL Network?
Yeah, I have.
I was watching a bunch of those leading up to the game, and Kurt Warner said something in it. When he lost the Super Bowl, he regretted not celebrating what they had accomplished instead, and he did what you talked about. He went and sulked in a corner, and then after the game, I was like, yeah, it sucks. We just lost the Super Bowl, but we did something really cool.
Yeah.
And I wanted to celebrate with the guys about what we did for the year and all the success that we had, rather than, sit in a corner and sulk about the game we just lost.
Hell of a perspective from such a young quarterback who got into the Super Bowl in only a second year, only to fall short. But Kyle, what did you think of his perspective, his take, and also taking advice from one of the game's best quarterbacks?
It just felt so good to listen to. You get to a certain age, get enough salt in your beard, you start to succumb to those feelings about, well, these young people these days, they just don't get it, and we're all going to hell in a handbasket, and no, they don't care, they don't have any perspective, and it's not true. And then you hear Joe Burrow say something just is so wise and so interesting and so introspective. I love that he watches the special. I love that he knows who Kurt Warner is. Kurt Warner is a legend and a Hall of Famer and a Super Bowl champion. And, I don't know what these younger generations, if they really appreciate those who came before them or not. And they do. And they learn from them. And I'm so encouraged by this. And I have to say, it's one thing to watch Kurt Warner say it, and it's another to do it. Not only did Joe Burrow lose the Super Bowl, guys, that was a bitter, bitter defeat in which the ball was in his hands in the final play and he couldn't get the pass off. It wasn't like they showed up and it was 31-17 Rams and it wasn't their day. If ever you were going to have a moment to sulk and not have perspective, it would be as after Aaron Donald's tearing you down and you're throwing it to somebody. And yet still, he's like, I watched those who came before me, those who helped build this league and what it is today, and I'm learning from them, and it is just the goods. And I think that someday somebody will be watching Joe Burrow's football life and they'll be learning from him. It's just so cool, Peter.
It's interesting because we like it both ways, too, because I remember watching The Last Dance and Michael Jordan loses to the Detroit Pistons, and that next morning he's in the gym lifting weights and the rest of the guys had to gravitate towards him, and there was no celebration for how close we got. There was instead, let's get to work. You can have it both ways. I respect Burrow showing some vulnerability here and saying, gosh, that was pretty cool. I know there's a lot more to go, but that was pretty cool, and we got to appreciate that. Now let's take a moment, and then let's get back on the horse and keep on rolling. What's interesting about this Bengals team is that this is not the NBA, it's not baseball, it's football, and the salary cap is always looming. We've seen young quarterbacks, whether it be Jared Goff, or whether it be Colin Kaepernick, or whether it be even Carson Wentz on a team that another quarterback took him, get to the Super Bowl early in their career and then not return. And a lot of that is because of the salary cap situation. And you got to start disassembling your team and paying people different money. And Michael Robinson, you know this all too well with Russell Wilson. Once he got paid, the Seattle Seahawks couldn't pay everybody and they never got back to the big dance. So there is this moment in time that is still very much alive for the Bengals. And I think 2023 is this really important season for them. That they still have Burrow, and of course they still have Chase and Boyd and Higgins and Mixon, all these guys under reasonable contracts before everyone says, okay, I got to leave, I got to get paid. I find 2023 Joe Burrow to be a fascinating quarterback because it might seem like the window is huge, but this might be the year that they really have their best shot at getting back.
Very fascinated by Joe Burrow, very fascinated about this season for the Cincinnati Bengals. And that clip just showed great perspective from Joe Burrow being a young guy in the National Football League, especially in a society that only celebrates the winners. You guys know capitalism only celebrates the winners. There's winners and losers. There's no second place. And for Joe Burrow to have that perspective, in that moment, to me, I think is going to help them this year. And let me explain that. Because usually when a team loses and they're sulking and they're, kind of in their feelings or whatever, again, that creates that sets up for the next season, right? It sets up for the offseason. It sets up for the attitude in the building. And I think the reason why the Cincinnati Bengals are going to be successful going forward, because they have a guy like Joe Burrow at the helm, a guy, as their leader. And again, they're going to have to pay everybody, or they won't be able to pay everybody. They're going to have to pay some of the young stars on that team. But as long as they have a young leader like Joe Burrow leading everybody, I don't really think it matters who they have come through that locker room. I think they're going to be fine. He's a culture changer.
I just think mentally it's so hard for young players to be resilient these days, particularly because of social media. And I'm not saying that is a throwaway, but I'm saying that's real. When these guys don't have good games, or you've affected their fantasy football rosters, or you've fallen short and the Bengals faithful wanted the Super Bowl, it's hard not to get caught up on that. But to have that young perspective and to be able to sort of compartmentalize, put that away, and then look forward to the next season, I think is a big deal for Burrow.